Welcome to Occasional Randomness. We are continuing our voyage through the TV series Farscape. For our prior episodes on Farscape, you can go to our website, occasionalrandomness.podbean.com. After a longer than expected break, we'll explain that in a minute, we are back. And this time we're jumping into the first two episodes of Season 3. Episode 1, Season of Death, and Episode 2, Sons and Lovers. I'm your host, Eric Scott, and joining me as always, my fellow co-host, somebody whose brain is no longer scrambled, Jason Johnson.
Blurg.
Yeah, that'd be fun. We do the whole podcast like that. That'd save me on editing time. That'd be great.
You could just recut that one line in multiple times, right? That'll just
Just cut and paste that for 45 minutes and call it a day.
I'm sure somebody would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Intelligent, although that probably is about as intelligent as I come off normally, so it'd work. But nobody'd notice.
All right, so if you've been following along quasi real time as we record and release these, it's been about 2 months since we wrapped season 2. We weren't exactly planning on being away that long, even though each of us had vacations. However, just kind of like season 1 ender going into season 2, just as we were going to watch season 3 first 2 episodes on Amazon Prime, guess what? Farscape's not on Amazon Prime anymore as of August 2022 as we record this. Well, it's not September, but anyway. So after frantically scouring the internet, we learned that the Jim Henson Company is now partnering with Shout Factory. And Shout Factory now has the exclusive worldwide rights. Say that fast 3 times. Blurg. So they have the rights to 13 of Jim Henson Company's series and specials. The only kind of 2 that we really care about is Farscape and the Farscape Peacekeeper Wars miniseries. So we had to wait until the end of August, beginning of September, for it to start streaming on Shout Factory TV. Available wherever fine internet browsers, Roku apps, or Amazon Prime channels are sold. Free plug.
Yeah, there's our kickback right there. The good news is that if you're willing to deal with commercials, it is free. So as opposed to before where you had to be a Amazon Prime subscriber, which most people are, because free shipping, right? But now you can get it for free as long as you're willing to sit through not terrible commercials. The funny part of all that to me, though, was that we literally were like texting back and forth saying, okay, how about this night to start? And we need to watch these 2 episodes. And then it disappeared because I had already checked once and it was still there.
Yeah, because I swear it was there. And then like, okay, yeah, great. I'll watch him get ready. Oh, here we go again.
Yep. And it wasn't even like you can buy them. It's just like, no, we're just kidding. Here's the page. But because I had the page pulled up in the browser. And I was like, I'm just going to click up. No.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, because it's still listed on Amazon. So I'm like, yeah, season 3. I'm like, where's the play button? Why can't I play?
And of course, we could not, just hop on a plane and go somewhere else and watch it. We had to find a legitimate source.
Yeah, things just don't fall off of trucks. Well, they kind of do, but not around here. So, but fortunately, it showed up, and it's just as good as it was before, minus the commercial. If you like commercials, or just watch your phone for a little bit, then turn back the TV.
Yeah, I will say I'm probably gonna. Although I didn't watch a lot of them, I will miss some of the extra stuff that Amazon gave you, the little things at the bottom. But free. Yeah. So what do we watch?
Right. So speaking of which, let's jump into the cliffhanger resolution of season 2, which would be season 3, episode 1, Season of Death.
Yeah, which I started to say, I almost feel like we should do a recap of what happened last time because it's been so long. But for y'all, it probably hasn't, or if it has, just go back and listen to that last episode. So you're good.
All right, season 3, episode 1, Season of Death. The crew are still The crew are still in orbit of the hospital planet, and each member of the crew in turn contacts Pilot to ask whether or not he's heard anything about Crichton. But he keeps telling them he's heard nothing, and he'll let them know as soon as he hears anything, and stop bugging me. On the planet, Lieutenant Bracca asks Grunchulk why he hid from them, if you remember that from last season. Grunchulk says that it was merely a precaution. He asks for his payment since he told them the moment Crichton arrived. Aha. Scorpius enters and says that he should be trying to prove that he still serves a purpose since their business on the planet is now finished. And we know what happens to Scorpius's friends when he's finished with them.
Yeah, I'm not sure how he has anybody to ever go back and revisit, but anyway.
Yeah, or any people that he still has contacts with. Yeah. So Crichton is still on the operating table, as we saw last season, brains open and everything, with Tokat, the doctor, still injured, lying on the floor. Inside John's mind, the Scorpius clone is still there. He did not leave when the chip left, and speaks to Crichton, telling him that Crichton must die. Breck is ready to shoot Grunchlook when Officer Corbin enters, saying that the command carrier's battle ended successfully. Okay, we didn't know about that. But the rendezvous has been delayed by 5 Arns. Scorpius says that Crichton's friends won't stay away that long, but what really worries him is that they may alert Crace and Talon, who is lurking around the planet somewhere. Grunchlook says that he has a special room that's private that they may use to hide in. Back to John and his little Scorpius buddy. In his head, the Scorpius clone tells Crichton that his death is the only way to separate them now that Scorpius has the neurochip, and the clone no longer has to protect Crichton. Crichton says that's great, why he's still here, but the clone does not know. He says that Scorpius won, so Crichton should just end it now. Meanwhile, Rygel is looking for Grunchlook when he hears Crichton
Bless you.
screaming. Yeah. He goes to the operating room and where he sees Toka on the floor and Crichton laying there, brains available, open on the table. Dargo orders Chiana and Jothee to stay on Moya before he accompanies Stark and Zan down to the planet. Grunchlook tells Scorpius that he's had no contact with the crew of Moya for over 9 Arns when a transport is detected leaving Moya, which we just mentioned. Grunchlook says that he will stall them, but Scorpius injects something into the back of his head, which allows him to use a headset to control Grunchlook's mind and body. Zan, Dargo, and Stark meanwhile arrive on the planet, and Zan manages to get Tokat breathing again. The Diagnosian whispers, Scorpius. Grace, aboard Talon, says that Scorpius must have come on a prowler or a marauder on his stealth trajectory. Scorpius makes Grunchlook shoot himself, and Dargo later finds him lying in the corridor, wounded, where he says that he's sure Scorpius has already left.
Which is not suspicious at all.
Yeah, so, sure. Back in the operating room, Stark says that Crichton didn't want the operation if anyone else would be harmed. Yet they used an Interion anyway. That's one of the people they had frozen that was kind of human-like. Stark says that those people are not dead, but stuck between realms. Dargo says that Crichton needs help and asks what Tokat can do. Tokat says he could try a neural transplant, but that would use up one of those donors. Stark says that Crichton wouldn't want that. Grunchlook says it might not even work, and Dargo says they need to know what Crichton wants anyway. So Zan shares Unity with him. She gets past the neural clone, and Crichton tells her to go away. There's no point, let him die. Zan breaks Unity and tells him that the clone is still there. Grunchlook notes that they'll never going to do what needs to be done, so Zan gets a lethal injection to kill Crichton. Dargo says no, they're going to help Crichton and get Scorpius out of his head. And Stark notices Zan trying to inject Crichton and stops her, but she says that he really wants to die. Dargo is kind of adamant and says that they won't lose another person, and Tokat says that Scorpius' personality was in Crichton so long that it's now merged with his consciousness. Zan says there's only one merciful thing to do, to which Grunchlook agrees, so Dargo just shoos them both away. He tells Tokat to restore Crichton's speech no matter what. Tokat says that Crichton insisted on no harm to any donors. Stark gets a little upset and says that Tokat is the one harming them. He can hear their screams, so he injects one of them with a lethal injection. Crichton screams incoherently, to which Stark says that it was mercy. Their pain was greater than his.
Good old erratic Stark.
Hey, there we go. So after being kicked out of the hospital room, Zan goes to meditate. When Crace contacts her, Grunchlook tells him to go and chase Scorpius, but Crace says he won't leave without Aeryn's body. Grunchlook says that Aeryn can take it up to him, but she says she can't do it. When they all leave, they'll take Aeryn with them. And then back on Moya, Jothee and Chiana are cooking, but end up in an embrace. Excuse me. And then kiss. Oh god. Excuse me. And then get into more more stuff. Meanwhile, Tokat has repaired Crichton's speech. Crichton says that Aeryn's gone, so he wants to die. Dargo says that Aeryn would want him to keep fighting, and Stark says that Scorpius is in his head, and that's only a remnant, and he needs to show who's stronger. So Crichton tells the clone that things are different now. He wants to make some ground rules. Those rules being he beats the crap out of the clone and throws him into a figurative dumpster. Ta-da! There's a new sheriff in town. Tokat detects an auto-release of one of the cryogenic pods and contacts Grunchlook. Grunchlook tells Tokat to let him deal with it, and very anxiously tells him to get away, get out of there. Tokat instead checks on the pod and is unfortunately killed by what's inside, which we find out is a Scaran. Grunchlook,
Remember those?
yeah, remember those guys? Speaking of kind of scary things, Grunchlook won't tell Scorpius why the Scaran's there, so Scorpius forces him to bite off the tip of his own finger. Ew. This makes Grunchlook speak, yeah, no kidding, and he says that the Scarans offered him money to keep one of them hidden until Scorpius returned.
I think what he actually said was because he had the
Yeah, yeah. He says that he took the payment as an advance and was going to keep the Scaran frozen, but since the Peacekeepers came in all guns blazing, he doubted Scorpius' good intentions, good idea, and set the Scaran's chamber to auto-release. Had Scorpius behaved and paid him, he would have turned it off. Yeah, somehow I don't think he would. But anyway, Chiana and Jothee are finished getting dressed when
For
Rygel.
some reason that we
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah. I must have blacked out there for a couple minutes. When Rygel enters, asking why the room is in such a mess. As a cover, they say they blew up a cooking pan, so he leaves unsuspecting. Meanwhile, Brekka tells Scorpius where everybody is, and Scorpius decides to send Grunchlook to the Scaran. Crichton wakes back up and says that he beat the clone, and asks how Stark knew what he had to do. Stark says he didn't, it just sounded like a good thing to try. He goes to get Zan so they can leave. Meanwhile, Grunchlook goes to speak with a Scaran, who asks where Scorpius is. Grunchlook says no, he's not here, but he has someone just as good, John Crichton. He tells him where Crichton is. Using his little heat projection, mind control interrogation thing, the Scaran asks if he's lying and if it's a trap, but Grunchlook, still controlled by Scorpius, is able to deny that it's a trap. The Scaran stuffs him in a cryopod and goes after Crichton. Scorpius then tells Officer Corbin that they need to get their information to the command carrier and says Corbin's piloting skills, who he keeps bragging about all episode, will be soon tested. Meanwhile, Zan notices that Aeryn is still alive, and Stark says that Grunchlook may have been planning to keep her as a donor. Zan says that Tokat's gifts could not save Aeryn, but Stark says he can't hear her soul is too far away to be reached, and any attempt to reach her would be dangerous. Zan says yeah, he's probably right, but then knocks him out.
Their relationship is so weird.
Yeah. When Dargo opens the door of the hospital room for him and Crichton to leave, he comes face to face with a Scaran. Dargo quickly slams the door, and they try to exit back through the other entrance into the snow. Dargo tells Crichton that the plan is to get the Scaran to follow them outside. Meanwhile, Zan apologizes to the unconscious Stark and takes off his mask, focusing Stark's energy on Aeryn's coffin. She gets unity with Aeryn, who finds Aeryn sitting in her ejection seat. Zan asks if Aeryn knows her or who she is. Aeryn responds with her peacekeeper rank and asks if Zan has come to reassign her. Zan says no, she's come to take her back. So in Unity, Aeryn says that Zan should not be there and asks why she's doing it. Zan says because she loves Aeryn, but more importantly, Crichton loves her. She says that Aeryn must take this gift for Crichton's sake, but Aeryn says she can't. She knows what this will cost Zan and breaks Unity. Zan falls back away from the coffin and is met by the gun of a Peacekeeper commando. Another commando is guarding Stark, and Scorpius tells them to keep Stark, but kill the Delvian. So just as that's going to happen, suddenly both Peacekeepers are shot by Dargo's Qualta Blade. It's Aeryn. She's alive. Ta-da!
Dun dun.
Scorpius soon realizes that the commandos are dead and tells Corbin that they can wait no longer. Meanwhile, the Scaran has followed Dargo and Crichton outside, but they're trapped by a jammed door on the other end. Dargo starts to fight the Scaran, but has no chance. Meanwhile, the Marauder leaves the planet on a stealth trajectory, and Talon and Krace pursue. The Scaran's ready to finish off Dargo when suddenly Aeryn appears and starts shooting it. Crichton stabs its open wound with an icicle, and the Scaran falls. He can't believe it's really Aeryn, but she explains that Zan brought her back, and they hug. Aww.
Oh.
Finally. Scorpius tells Krace to end the pursuit, but Krace says it will end in Scorpius' death. Scorpius says they have information on board the Marauder that could help them defeat the Scarans, so Krace should consider his fellow Sebaceans. Krace retorts that Scorpius should have considered one Sebacean that died because of him, Aeryn. They both reach the carrier, which Scorpius says will destroy them. Krace says, yeah, maybe, but he and Talon agree, and they fire, destroying the Marauder. Krace contacts Pilot to tell him that Scorpius is dead, and they draw away the carrier before they starburst away. Pilot informs the others of Scorpius' apparent death, and Stark says he's with Zan, Tokat is dead, and Grunchlook is as good as dead. Crichton says that they'll take the Interions as one of them died at his hands, and maybe, like Aeryn, they can be saved. But, like most things that are greatly exaggerated, Brekka tells Scorpius, who is not dead, that Moya and Talon have fled, and they're soon to be picked up on the planet. Scorpius says that Officer Corbin overestimated his piloting skills, but their task is more important now. They have a new Gamma base waiting to go into production. Hundreds of techs just waiting to apply the priceless wormhole technology that Scorpius now has from the neural chip. Back on Moya, Chiana, Jothee, Dargo, and Rygel are in the food room. Rygel says that Jothee and Chiana's time was so productive, and Dargo agrees that they are two excellent cooks. Meanwhile, Aeryn joins Crichton, looking at the Interions in the cargo bay. She says that she should not be here, but Crichton says no, it's exactly where she should be. He says he loves her, and she actually says that she loves him, and they kiss. Yay!
Yay.
They're about to go further than that when she breaks it off, refusing to act on that impulse.
Oh.
She says that she will not be the cause of anyone else's death because her judgment was faulty. She won't allow anybody else to sacrifice her life for hers. Surprised, Crichton asks, what are you talking about? Anybody else? Cut to Stark with Zan when Crichton enters and says that what she did to bring Aeryn back, her gift of spiritual energy, took everything she had. He asks if there's anything that he can do to help, but she says no, there's nothing. He says he won't accept that, but she says he has to She's dying. Dun dun dun.
Oh.
To be continued. All right, some trivia about this episode. Lanny Tupu, who plays Crace and the voice of Pilot, Wayne Pygram, Scorpius, and Harvey, the neural clone, and Paul Goddard, who plays Stark, are all added to the opening credits with this episode. And also a new piece of theme music is introduced to replace the show's original theme. And Ben Browder recorded an updated opening monologue, which replaces the original reference to him being hunted by an insane military commander, to instead wondering aloud whether he should protect the Earth from the dangers he's seen, or share with it the wonders. Also, changes to the opening episode titles are now presented on screen for the first time. Rather than being superimposed over a scene, the titles are presented on a black screen with a swirling animation effect. For all you wrestling fans out there, Crichton's line of "Can I get a hell yeah?" is a deliberate imitation by Ben Browder of Stone Cold Steve Austin's catchphrase and throwing style. Two different Grunchulk finger chomping scenes were filmed, the one that we saw on screen and a gorier one that was cut. And according
A
to
bit.
yeah, was bit was cut for time, huh? And according to the director, was like a Monty Python sketch. Yeah, so I'm kind of glad they didn't go with that one. The outside snow was created using soap flakes, which became rather uncomfortable for the actors to shoot after 3 days.
But they were clean.
Yeah, but it was clean fun. The situation in this episode where Scorpius has to hide from Crace and Talon is an ironic reference to Mind the Baby, because in this case the roles in the episode are now switched. Talon and Crace are the hunters, and Scorpius, Baraka, and the rest are the prey. All right, so that's our exciting conclusion of our season 2 cliffhanger. So what did you think, Jason?
As we'll kind of work through, I think as we go through this one and the next one, I enjoyed this one. I don't know if that's because I'm a sucker for the resolution to cliffhangers, if I just like multi-parters, or again, they started off with a good bang. But either way, I think they didn't bite off more than they could chew, and I think we got a good episode.
Ba-dum-bum. Yeah, I mean, it was good. It was definitely, like you, I love kind of cliffhanger resolutions, especially when they do it right. And I do kind of like sometimes when they change the credits of a show. So I do like that they've added these new cast members. Well, new, I mean, they've been around, but now they're official. I don't know, but whatever that means.
Hopefully, they got a pay bump, right?
Yeah, which obviously means if they're in the opening credits, that they're going to be in lots of episodes this season, or most of them, who knows. So it's kind of exciting. We get to look forward to some more conflict, since now we have Crace, who's sometimes in agreement, sometimes not. Scorpius, who obviously is not, and Harvey, now permanently, quote unquote, in John's head. So that's just going to be interesting. And we got crazy Stark running around doing whatever Stark does. So, hey, what's not to love, right?
Yeah, agreed. Though I think, at least in my brain, although I didn't think about Harvey, it took away some of the drama of wondering whether Scorpius was actually killed, because you're kind of like, yeah, okay, that was a play, right? He's obviously not going to die in the first episode of the season.
Yeah, plus he's in the opening credits now. So, yeah, that kind of doesn't really.
Right.
It's like, well, he's in the credits, so it must not be him unless they're going to go with yeah, Scorpius is dead and now it's just the clone. But that would be kind of weird.
Although they might get there eventually. You just never know.
Yeah, hey, we got 2 more seasons. And unfortunately, since that was what we loved, speaking of what's not to love about the opening, the new opening and closing theme music just doesn't do it for me. It's not as like far out and weird as season 1 and 2's theme was. And in case you're wondering, we're not going to be changing the opening or closing theme music of the podcast. We're going to keep using the old/best theme music. So, but I like the opening narration at least by Crichton because it kind of reflects what's happening now. So it's good that they kind of evolve that a little bit.
So what you're saying is you're going to do a supercut and give us a old music, new narration overdub?
Sure, we'll go with that.
I'll be waiting.
Yeah, don't wait too long. So I guess back to things we did like. So I do like that the opening scene where everybody keeps asking Pilot, one after the other, hey, anything about Crichton? Hey, how's Crichton? Hey, how's Crichton? And Pilot keeps getting more and more fed up and frustrated and finally snaps at them and tells them, he'll tell them when he hears anything, go away. So it's kind of fun that Pilot is more than just telling people that Moya's doesn't feel well or he sees things outside the ship.
And he deserves to be fed up. I mean, they were pretty demanding. But speaking of that, how's Crichton?
Yeah. Hey, remember that Crichton guy? How's he doing? And we get introduced to some more of Scorpius's little infernal machines. This time he's got one that can let him take over your entire mind and body and make you do and say anything he wants, like shoot yourself or bite off your own finger, and pretty much whatever else he wants. At first I thought, well, that was kind of convenient. I wonder where this was last season and why he didn't use it on Crichton before. But then I just self-checked myself, and it's like, well, that's not going to matter because the wormhole knowledge is kind of subconscious, and Crichton doesn't know it all. So if he was totally controlled, he couldn't reveal it anyway. So I'm like, "Oh, okay, never mind. That explains it. It was still cool. It was
Right.
still a cool device, though.
It is. It is. Yeah, I wanted to like an interject one of the clips of Jack Nicholson's Joker. Where does he get those wonderful toys things going right there? I can't do the voice, or I tried. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But I guess when you're the crazed, mad inventor kind of guy, you make cool things. So,
I mean, the guy's got cooling rods in his head, so yeah.
yeah. Which we're not seeing in this episode. Thank you. Let's see, more things we liked, or I liked anyway. When they were deciding whether to heal Crichton or not, was some pretty interesting little scene. Zan wants to basically say, okay, yeah, Crichton wants to die. Great, we'll kill him, and going so far as to try to do that with a lethal injection. And then Dargo and Stark going with Plan B and saving him, even though it cost the lives of one of the Interion people that were frozen.
True, although I find it interesting that he being Stark doesn't try to kill all the Interions, right? Because if they're in that much pain and suffering, you'd think he'd be wanting to help them all move along, but instead they pack him up at the end and take him with them. So
Yeah, or unless he thought maybe in case killing the first one didn't work, they got another one. I don't know, but Stark ain't that up there, much. So yeah, who knows?
true.
And like we kind of mentioned before, hey, Harvey's still around. So I do remember this from future episodes. Spoiler alert, Jason. Sorry, from what I remember from 20 years ago from watching this. So, and then of course, Crichton beating the metaphorical and psychological crap out of him and tossing him in the dumpster was hilarious. That was a good scene. Crichton finally gets to at least get his quasi-revenge on Scorpius, sort of. And without the neural chip, he can't control Crichton anymore, he says. Or can he? Ooh.
Yeah, the throwaway line there of he's fully merged or imprinted into Crichton's brain doesn't bode well. Although I'm interested to see if without the actual chip, does that mean that Crichton's free to beat up the real Scorpius now?
Could be. I mean, he almost killed him, what, last time? He kind of or at some point in one of the episodes, he kind of overrode the chip and almost killed him. So, yeah, now maybe if he's truly just a passenger now, yeah, I mean, all bets are off, right?
Right. Well, then it'll be interesting to see if it's the chip or if having Harvey still in his head has an effect.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll show up from time to time to distract Crichton from an important thing or a critical moment. Who knows? But we'll see.
Yeah, I'm sure that dumpster was the last we see of him.
And then we have Groundshook, who apparently is about as schemy as Scorpius. He's got his plans within plans, so he's got money from both sides by alerting Scorpius that Crichton was on the planet, and also even before then having a Scaran as a backup in case Scorpius showed up and double crossed him. So hey, I guess he and Scorpius are kind of perfect for each other. They're both backstabbers of, of each other.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to hand it to him that that wasn't a bad plan, and he came within a finger's width of pulling it off.
I was gonna say something. I was gonna try to make a finger joke there, but okay, good job.
I mean, it wasn't a snap, but still,
Yeah, it's really a pointed scheme.
bit off more than he can chew.
Yeah,
We should move on.
yeah. And I'm kind of glad they didn't turn into like a Monty Python blood spurting everywhere kind of thing. That would just been, I think, over the top. That we didn't need that. So.
Yeah, and it probably would have taken away, right? I mean, it would have taken you out of the scene if it's too over the top. So
Yeah, I mean, it was bad enough that he bit his finger off, and before that, the thing that Scorpius stuck in the back of his head, it was almost like a big dagger stab thing. And I'm like, wow, that was. Did he kill him? No, he took. Okay, whatever. But yeah, so it was getting a little over the top. So okay, you gotta tone it down a little bit there. Let's see. Keeping with the what we loved about this episode, Zan saving Aeryn. Of course, we knew Aeryn had to come back, but just how? There
yeah,
now we know
she
how.
was still in the credits. So
Yeah, yeah. The opening credits kind of kills the whole mood of the show. It's like, oh, Claudia Black. Look, okay. But you knew she'd come back. Her knocking out Stark and using his energy was cool. Aeryn didn't want to come back, much like Crichton didn't want to come back because both thought each other was dead. And then Aeryn shows up and whacks a couple of peacekeepers, and we know she's back. So yay. And speaking of we know Aaron's back, then we cut to Dargo and Crichton outside trying to deal with the Scaran and not doing so good. But then Aeryn comes to rescue again and shoots the crap out of him. And then Crichton finishes him off with a nice stabby stab with an icicle. And then they finally hug. Yay!
yay! I'm glad they didn't drag that whole Aaron coming back thing out and we get her back pretty quickly because I really didn't want the whole season to be the search for Aaron, or whatever the second Star Trek movie was that I don't know, but so it's again, her name's in the credits. She's an important character. Got to have this whole big thing, but now she's back, and they make. Well, I'm sure we'll discuss. They get some progress there. So again, hug, yay.
Yeah, and it's cool that they didn't like, show her coming back to life. That they kind of hit it off camera and just basically that's like the next couple scenes of big reveal of like, hey, it's Aeryn. Oh, Xana Stark. Oh, it's Aeryn. Hey, Dargo and John. It's Aeryn.
And you get the payoff of Dargo leaving her his Qualta blade, right? Because she gets to put it to use.
Yep, who apparently she's a much better shot with it than he is. But anyway, we won't go there.
He has other things to deal with.
Yeah, he's got other problems, which we'll get to in a minute. Let's see, more nice things. We bring in our other new cast member in the credits, Craze. He and Talon get a nice little scene attacking the Marauder and him arguing or sniping back and forth with Scorpius. And everybody thinks that, hey, Scorpius is dead, which lasts about 35 seconds. I don't know, a minute. I don't know. But we learn that there's a new Gamic base, and that's where he'll be to start extracting the wormhole knowledge. So more on that, I'm sure, to come.
Yeah, and once again, Scorpio gets to show why he's a good villain, right? I mean, everybody gets to think he's dead. He gets to go in private, mad science it up until he's ready for the next big reveal.
Yeah, so maybe we won't see him for a couple episodes, and we'll just have Harvey floating around, kind of thing. So
Which is not a bad way to take the character and let him do something in the background while you've also still got the actor acting as the character, right? So yeah, props to them for figuring that one out.
yeah, good use of their talent. I guess obviously now Scorpius is the big bad, not Craze, so they've got to find ways to keep him employed, engaged, and whatever. So there you go. And then the next best thing in this episode, back at the end of the show in Moya's cargo bay, John and Aeryn are both together, and they finally say out loud what we've been waiting for 2 seasons for, that they both love each other. Yippee! And then things kind of stop there for now.
Yeah, I mean, I get they don't want to push past that too quick, but it was like, yeah, we're finally. No, okay, we're back to this point again. So I'm sure that discussion won't happen in the next episode or anything where we still have to keep working through this relationship, right?
Yeah, I'm sure not. I'm sure everything's fine now, and
Good.
we'll just move on from there. And we've dodged around it, but saving the worst for last, Jothee and Chiana. So what can I say? That was at least for me, an uncomfortable scene with them in the kitchen, making out and do the math on what happens next. I, I don't, I still don't know why this plotline exists or why or how it even happened in the first place. I don't get it. I said that last time. I don't get it. I mean, sure, it's inner crew drama and get some tension and wonderful, and it's gonna last a little bit longer. And I don't know. I mean, maybe I guess you can look at it from the standpoint of, I guess you have two sides of a relationship playing out. You have happy path, Aeryn and Crichton finally revealing their love for each other and being all happy about it, and a potentially unhappy one with Chiana, Jothee, and when Dargo finds out, I'm sure he won't be thrilled about it.
Yeah, yeah, you can't have too much of that happiness floating around. I think I've probably mentioned it too often, but I'm not a fan of crew drama, right? It's not what I like in the show. I prefer a unified crew and external conflicts, and I think that I think you got a point there. I think that they were trying to balance it out by saying, okay, well, if we're going to move this relationship up a notch, then we've got to do something here. And I don't know. I'm almost at a loss for words because I, slight spoiler for the next episode as we kind of get into it in just a second. But even after that episode, I still don't know why. I mean, like, was this all they could come up with? Is it? I think I know why they did it. I just don't understand why they went this route instead of coming up with some other less odd way to do it. Right? Like, I mean, it's just kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, unless the actor that played Dargo wanted to do more than just be like the tough guy and want to have like some emotional arc, which okay, I guess you got both sides of that now. You got, hey, we're in love, we're happy, I found somebody, my wife and child, my wife's dead, my child's missing, but hey, I got somebody. And then eventually, like, oh no, she's cheating on me. What, okay, fine. But yeah, just they could have done something else maybe, but whatever. I mean, yeah, like you, I like happy crew and a crew that are functional. I mean, they still have their snarky moments with each other and argue and, have the little one-liners and stuff, which is great. And that's the funny part of Farscape that I remember and I like the most. This stuff, eh.
Yeah. I'm not saying I expect them to be like the Partridge Family or something, and riding around singing and I've never seen the Partridge Family. Whatever happens there, but I can't take that any further. But it's still there's a line, and I don't know that this may have been one of those where without great reason I'm not quite sure I understand the justification, and I would hope they got some good writers on this show. I would have expected somebody to kind of knock on the door and be like, about this idea we had, let's not. And again, I feel like we're beating it up a lot at the end. This was a relatively good episode. Not relatively. This was a great episode. I really enjoyed it. Second parter. We got a lot of stuff done. It's just this one element that I still can't wrap my head around.
And I guess since you don't know anything about the Partridge Family, I won't try to map the Farscape crew to the Partridge Family cast.
You'd be on your own, man.
Yeah.
I literally, if you told me there was a family of partridges, I'd probably believe you. So
I only got as far as mapping Rygel to Danny, and that's about as far as I got. So, but anyway, that won't mean anything to you, but that's fine. So,
Ocean? No. Okay.
yeah, right.
Ocean's. Well, now there's one we could probably do.
Yeah, I'm sure we can go. Stay tuned for our wrap-up episode where we do all our what ifs.
Yeah, so it's at some point I might have to go back and actually document how many of these we've come up with, and then actually try to make a flow chart. So, yeah, we'll work it out someday.
Yep.
No, we won't.
No, yeah, no.
No, not gonna do it.
Spoiler, no.
It's where you overimpose with the, and they didn't.
And then nothing happened.
Speaking of that, you want to roll into the next one?
Yeah, I suppose.
Such an uplifting approach.
More on that later too, but anyway.
All right. So, season 3, episode 2, Suns. That's SUNS, Suns, because it's a space show. And Lovers. So we start with Rygel turning on a monitor to find Chiana and Jothee having sex.
No!
What?
Stop it.
Out of nowhere. Anyway, and he gazes on it. Yeah, as
Pervert.
Rygel would do. Yeah. Come on, he's not going to change the channel.
No, of course not.
Meanwhile, Moya has docked at a commerce station near the twin sons of Quell, say that 3 times fast, to allow the crew to spend the money they stole from the Shadow Depository, because I guess it's burning a hole in the hull. As he gets drunk, Crichton is talking to the barman, Myrtle, when Dargo comes in and shows him some union tattoo for himself and Chiana for their marriage. Stark tells Zan that they're going to find a planet where she can recuperate when they're finished. Aeryn enters and sits with Crichton when a woman named Borlick asks if he is John Crichton. His reputation precedes him, and as she tells his story, Crichton corrects her errors, blowing his cover. She says that they're all friends and they hate peacekeepers here. As she orders him a drink, a storm suddenly hits, sending the station into chaos. Everyone's shaken up but okay, and Moya's been thrown into the docking ring. Pilot calls Chiana to help, and Jothee sees one of the frozen Interions move. Chiana bumps into Rygel, who calls her a slut. He says he saw them, so she tells him not to tell Dargo. But Rygel says he'll smell Jothee all over her. Because Dargo can smell things. And Dargo, who is checking out the damage to Moya, says she's okay, she being Moya, but is now tangled in some cables. Meanwhile, Borlick tells Crichton of the story of the 3 commerce stations, which were cursed since they were built on the sacred stillness. The other 2 were destroyed, and storms that persist are getting worse and seem to be aimed at the station. Meanwhile, Jothee opens up the cryopod, and the Inteneron tells Jothee that they were on a mission looking for someone, but he and another got sick. He then throws up on Jothee and dies. Meanwhile, Chiana manages to seal the vent, but sees a trapped child through a window in the station. Aeryn goes with Crichton to look for the child as Chiana says that Jothee killed the Interion. Dargo's bringing the ship on board and wants Chiana and Jothee to check it out, so she sends Jothee to bathe to get rid of her scent. Yeah, sounds like a good idea. Aeryn tells Crichton that she's been thinking about how peacekeepers relieve tension by reducing bodily fluids through sex. Seems to be the theme of this episode.
Yeah.
Crichton is...
I guess that's the lovers part? I don't know.
Anyway, yeah. It's not the sun part.
No.
Crichton is reluctant and says now is not the time. As Aeryn unzips her suit, she falls to the floor into a waste conduit. Pilot tells Crichton that the storm turned 90 degrees to hit them, and another one is on its way in 2 arms. Rygel wants to leave, but Crichton says no. He asks who might want to destroy the station, and Myrtle mentions a religious sect who think that by buying and selling on their sacred ground, they're desecrating it. The ship that Dargo brought on board is protected by a defense screen, which is still active. I'd like to have seen how they got it on board. Dargo tells Chiana that he's sorry and he wants to talk, but she says she's not ready and she'll talk later. The others have brought the DRDs onto the station to search for the source attracting the storm when Stark takes a look at Zan's head. Her condition is worsening much faster than they predicted. She says he shouldn't worry since he's an expert on dying, and while he agrees, he says that he's just not an expert on her dying. Jothee tells Chiana that he thinks Dargo knows about them when suddenly Dargo comes in and smells something other than Jothee's basic bathing lotion. He asks why they're both in the room and doesn't believe their reason. Chiana asks if he's spoken with Rygel, and he says about what. He realizes that the two of them have betrayed him, and shows Chiana the tattoo. He says she'll never have it, and he imprints it on Jothee after knocking her away. He leaves and says he'll never listen to anything either of them will ever have to say. As he leaves, he reveals that the smell was simply a burnt-out power cell from the cryo chamber. It was their own reactions that gave them away.
More on that later.
Mm-hmm. On the station, one of the DRDs picks up a signal, and it goes crazy when Stark points it at Borlick, revealing that she is the source of the signal. She starts chanting and becomes stuck to the ceiling. The pipe she's up against would freeze everyone if it's ruptured, so she's stuck there. Rygel stuffs a cloth in her mouth to shut her up, and Pilot tells Crichton that a bigger source of the metal that the pipe is made of may attract her away, and they'll have to source it on Moya. One of the interior cryopods happens to be that metal. Moya is still stuck on the cable, so even if they remove Borlick, they can't get her away in time to keep the coming storm away. Crichton asks Pilot if Dargo has looked, but Pilot says he's not answering his comm. Rygel guesses what's happening and reveals the truth about Chiana and Jothee's relationship. Crichton goes to see Dargo and says that he didn't know when Dargo showed him the tattoos, but that they'll need Dargo's help or they'll all die. Dargo, clearly distraught, says that they broke his heart and so everyone will all die. Crichton chews out Jothee and Chiana, angrily telling the two of them that they betrayed the one person on Moya who would have done anything for either of them, even die. Dargo, meanwhile, is drunk but decides to go out anyway. Pilot says that Crichton told him Dargo wasn't going and asks why, but Dargo just says goodbye. Pilot begins to urge him to come back inside. Stark and Crichton are bringing the cryopod on board the station to pull Borlick into it when Pilot tells Crichton that Dargo's gone EVA. Dargo says that only 2 cables are left, but they're power cables. Pilot can't turn them off, and Dargo says that he doesn't need to wait for Crichton. Chiana tells Dargo to wait, but he says that she'll never tell him what to do again. Chiana asks Crichton to speak to Dargo, but he won't listen and says goodbye to Crichton. As Chiana screams, Dargo neutralizes the cable and floats away, but he gets caught on the end. Crichton goes outside to help him and gets Moya clear. Chiana tells him to help Dargo, but he says first he has to free Moya. Aeryn finds the hatch to the nursery, but Mortal dies before he can give her the code to open it. She manages to shoot it open and get the group of children. Meanwhile, Crichton slips and floats away, but Dargo catches him. They get the cable away and Crichton starts to return to Moya, but Dargo doesn't follow, so Crichton says he won't go alone. The storm is starting to shake the station again when Chiana and Jothee go see Dargo, who tells them they both to stay away from him. Crichton finds Borlick stuck to Moya's wall, thinking she's won, but Crichton reveals that the door is detachable and ejects her as Pilot laughs maniacally. The storm follows and strikes her. The children are back on the station, and Stark tells Zahn that they'll find a planet for her. Crichton tells Aeryn that he's been thinking about her suggestion, and she says maybe they should wait. He asks what about fluid levels, and she says there will be a backlog. Jothee is preparing to leave and is speaking with Chiana as Dargo secretly watches. Jothee says that he betrayed Dargo, and Chiana says it wasn't all his fault. He asks why she did it, and she says that she didn't like the plans that Dargo had made for them, but knew he wouldn't take a no for an answer, so she did something unforgivable. Jothee says that she used him, and she agrees, but says that he enjoyed it. He tells her that if Dargo will listen to him, to tell him he's sorry, and that he'll return one day and make it up to both Dargo and Chiana. Dargo watches and burns the other Yugen tattoo, almost in tears. A little trivia for this episode: Wayne Pygram, who plays Scorpius, does not appear in this episode.
So much for that.
Yeah. He still got his title in it, right?
Yep.
So,
I'm sure he can still get paid, yeah.
Yeah, get that check. The title for this episode was partly inspired by D.H. Lawrence's classic story, Sons and Lovers. Spelling difference. That's S-O-N-S.
Sci-fi.
Yeah, space. DRD One-Eye makes a return appearance in this episode. One of the children found by Aeryn is played by the director Andrew Prouse's daughter, Stella. And according to Gigi Edgley, the producers wanted to keep Matt Newton, that's Jothee, on the show, but the young actor was in great demand and had to leave. Prior to appearing on the show, Anthony Simcoe had briefly taught Newton at NIDA, the Australia Drama School. And one of the most repeated phrases from Farscape, "Frail Me Dead," makes its debut. I missed that. I wonder which scene was that from? Did you catch that one?
Aeryn said it at some point during the maybe when they fell into the conduits or something.
Ah, okay. So thoughts?
I guess as we kind of hinted at, I didn't quite like this one as much as the last one. It had its good parts, and it was mostly good, I guess, whatever our rating scale is, which we don't really have one. I'm just still mad at the whole Jothee Chiana thing, which at least now looks like it's over, since the trivia mentioned that the actor playing Jothee left. So, and he was a good actor, and I'm kind of sorry to see him go in that respect, but I'm done with this plot line, so thank you, leave. But now we just have to deal with the repercussions apparently from of what happened for some time to come. So I guess we'll have some little drama on the show with him and with Dargo and Chiana. Otherwise, everything else is pretty good. So I guess I don't know whatever our rating scale is. I guess I'll call it good, not great.
Yeah, you're probably right. Though my dislike of the crew drama mentioned earlier makes me dislike this more than it probably deserves. The bones of the episode are good, so I'll just focus on the fact that we have no more Jothee. Again, nothing against the actor. It wasn't anything permanent. There wasn't anything really against him. It just was the storylines that they gave him never really gelled, and I'm not sorry to see the crew kind of re-gel without him. Which is interesting, right? Like we've got quite a few additions to the core crew this year, which between Stark and Jothee for a little bit, and then having Crace around a little bit more. So I think it kind of lightens it a little bit to get rid of one of the characters, especially since I wasn't enjoying his arc.
Yeah, and then plus you have way too many people on the show, and then you have way too many plot lines, and we have a little core group of crew. We should just focus on them, right?
Yeah, I don't mind Stark, although I don't think he has to be in every episode. Although it's tough to figure out where he went. And I obviously they don't feel like they have to use Crace every episode either, which is a positive.
Yep. Yeah, so the episode opens, I guess we're apparently, at least in this part of the Uncharted territories, word's getting around about the crew, or I guess really at this point just Crichton. And like most tales that spread kind of organically, I guess the details get lost in translation or get embellished from the original. So it's kind of fun to see Crichton kind of confirm that, yep, I'm Crichton, but no, all your stuff is wrong. Here's what really happened. So, although I guess if I was Dargo or Aeryn, or I guess really especially Rygel, I might be a little peeved that they're not recognized either, just Crichton.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I'll also mention I felt that Rygel was a little off in this episode. He just didn't seem. I don't know. The character just didn't quite seem right to me. Maybe it just wasn't the fact that he didn't have a lot to do. I did like the embellished reputation part. It's kind of like having Crichton be the Dread Pirate Roberts of the Farscape world. So
Yeah, good point. And yeah, larger than life, this big crazy guy, and it's like, no, it's really just it's all kind of mild. I'm just a dude, whatever. But it was funny.
maybe eventually he can trade up his replacement and just trade spots. Start calling him Crichton and
Maybe you can pull those interons out of the cryopod and be like, hey, this is Crichton. Well, yeah, I guess speaking of interons, I don't know why Jothee opened up that cryopod, other than he thought that the person in there moved and maybe saw him and Shanna having sexy time on the floor of the cryo bay, of the cargo bay. I guess didn't he get the memo that they're frozen at the moment of death or they're almost dead, so you probably shouldn't open the pod, otherwise they're gonna die? Which of course, like a minute after he opened the pod, he did die, so there you go. Unless maybe the only thing I can think of is the pod was damaged in the crash, which maybe that's why Dargo said he smelled a burnout power cell. I don't know, but that wasn't really explained that well.
no, and I think you're right. I think that's what they were going for was to give them the power cell thing to deal with later, and also to give them a reason to keep coming back to that room. Hence the smell issues. But that's one of the things in this episode I had trouble tracking. There's a couple of spots that I'll probably mention along where I got lost in the details. I'm hoping that they did it because maybe that bit of plot throwaway where the itinerant, I'm terrible at names, throws out that they were on a mission to do something. Maybe that gets revisited, but maybe not. Maybe it was just a toss out. We'll see.
And unlike last episode where we went to the good things first, keep going on the bad things I didn't care for in this episode, and we'll just get those out of the way. Why did Aeryn come on to Crichton when they're going through the station's conduits? It's like you have a couple arms to save the kids and who knows how many other people on the station before it gets destroyed, and you want to go have some frisky time. What? That just made no sense to me whatsoever.
So I'm going to benefit of the doubt this one, which is funny for me, but let's go for that. I'm going to say that they wanted to have some kind of relationship forward momentum for Crichton and Aeryn here, even if it was tough to fit it in, just to kind of give them a chance to move the relationship slightly forward. because they had to offset the dumpster fire that was the Dargo Chiana Jothee mess. And so, you know, again, probably not the best way to do it, but they were dealing with the story that they had, such as it is, and just had to shoehorn some kind of momentum into that relationship to counteract the other.
Yeah, true. I mean, I like the fact that they're having a conversation while they're walking because, you get kind of bored walking through a conduit. So yeah, they're talking about their relationship, but then yeah, just why you want to kind of stop and fool around and like, wait a minute, but whatever, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, that is an odd choice for her, I'll say, but yeah, you're right. The banter while doing a mission is definitely something I enjoy, and that was nice to see. That kind of, hey, we're doing this, but we're going to keep our side conversation from earlier going about this.
All right, so enough of the weird things or whatever. Let's get some fun stuff.
Cool.
All right, so I like that they brought the DRDs over to help search for the signal because hey, they're still around. They do things, and we kind of get that throwback if you've been paying attention to Farscape all these seasons, where they bring on the one DRD that's only got one eye, which is a throwback to way, 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 way back. I guess you could say the original episode one, season one, where I guess Crichton, I guess, bumps into him or falls into him, and he like breaks off one of his eye stalks. So that's kind of funny, but I guess it's been 2 years. They couldn't fix the poor DRD's eye stalk, but Crichton's duct tape didn't last 2 years. But hey, it's a callback. It's fun. If you're paying attention to all these years, it's cool.
Well, and it's not like they had extra money to burn or anything. Oh wait, that's why they were on the planet. So, so yeah. And speaking of references and callbacks, or side references, I did like the fact that he made a reference to Scoobying it up or Scooby time or something like that, and to use that to kind of sniff him out. And he makes a reference to when the DRD finds it, he's like, okay, give him a Scooby snack. I like the pop culture references from Crichton. That's always enjoyable. So it was nice to have that back.
And I was kind of thinking, also like references, but they didn't reference it intentionally. But when the DRD pointed towards the Borlick who had the signal, how it was like going crazy, and I kind of thought back to like Star Trek, my favorite Star Trek episode, The Trouble with Tribbles, where they find the secret Klingon agent because the Tribble doesn't like Klingons and like makes a weird noise when it gets near a Klingon.
Spoilers.
Yeah, for for a 60-year-old television show. Just in case you hadn't seen the episode back in 1967, there you go. Okay.
I haven't seen
What? This podcast is over. What?
I came in on Next Generation. I didn't watch any of the original series.
Hey, there we go. No, no. There's already enough Star Trek There's already enough Star Trek podcasts out there. We're not going to do it. All right, moving on.
Well, unless we can't come up with any ideas later, in which case y'all might get a Star Trek episode. But anyway.
Well, we'll see. We'll see in 2 years. All right. I guess we'll deal with the elephant in the room here. It was some nice comeuppance with Jothee and Chiana when Dargo instantly asks, "What's that smell in the cargo bay?" And they're all like, "What? What'd you hear? Who'd you talk to? What's going on?" And they basically guilt themselves into confessing what happened. And he's like, "Yeah, I knew that, but I wasn't sure. But thank you for proving that." So at least he's Dargo's not just the big stupid hulking brute that he sometimes appears to be. And then he just leaves in his normal huff and burns one of the tattoos onto Jothee and storms out. Nice job.
Yeah, although I'll say, after spending so much time with him, wanting to get Jothee and wanting to get Jothee, and I get being mad, don't especially for Dargo, but tattooing your kid as some rough punishment, man. I mean, that's like taking it to 11 right off.
Yeah, there's something to be said for Lux and parenting skills. I don't know, but
yeah. I mean,
although I guess it could have been worse, right? So
it could have been worse. He could have some species eat their young, so there you go. So I don't know.
Yeah, and then of course everybody else has to learn what happened, and then Crichton's rightly annoyed and chews both of them out. Like, how could you do this? And because he did all that, now we're all gonna die because Dargo's drunk and too depressed. So thanks a lot.
Except Dargo's the good guy in this one, so
yeah. And of course, he knew, so he does decide to go out anyway and help free Moya. And I guess he's not too suicidal because he does bring an oxygen mask this time, so he can stay outside more than 15 minutes, or not microns, that's seconds. They have minutes. They never mentioned what minutes. Anyway, a quarter Arn. There we go. As we learned that Luxon can survive that
nicely
long.
done.
Yeah, there we go. Call back to Farscape measurements. But then he pretty much doesn't really care apparently for his life, and he shorts out the two cables rather than waiting for Crichton or anybody else to come help him. So yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'll admit I was actually worried on this one. I figured one of the characters had to leave the show, and I try not to let myself get too spoiled on who's where and all that kind of stuff. And we're still relatively early in the season, so it's possible that the actor could have left, right? So I did get a little worried that I wasn't sure if it was going to be Dargo or Jothee who had to move on.
But then, of course, Dargo gets shocked to his senses and winds up saving Crichton as well.
That one's hanging by a thread.
Yes.
Or cable.
That's right. Yeah, so they both save each other, as they always seem to do. So in the end, his friendship and loyalty to John at least overcomes any suicidal behavior, at least for now.
Yeah, and again, spoiler, which is why this episode does get a little redemption in my book. The friendships between the crew, right, especially Dargo and John, as far as friendship go, it is one of my favorite parts of the crew dynamic, and it's good to see them being consistent with that ever since the end of the first season.
Yeah, they seem to have the best bonding relationships out in space, in EVA suits and things. It's kind of weird, but anyway, there you go.
Everybody has their thing.
Yeah, everybody's got their. And I guess kind of one of the best scenes in this episode at the end when they have Borlick in Moya and she escapes and basically magnetizes herself to one of Moya's walls and is all chuckling and like, haha, you're all gonna die, it's over, haha. And Crichton's like, yeah, that part of Moya, that's detachable, thanks, goodbye. And he ejects her out into space while she screams and floats away before she gets blown up by the whatever wave coming. Although the only weird thing about that is then they cut to Pilot who's laughing really maniacally as the panel gets ejected. That was a little weird and kind of uncharacteristic for Pilot.
Yeah, I'm guessing maybe that'll be something we get to revisit. Is something going on with Pilot there? Is there's something weird, or was that just kind of a one-off again, one of those things? That does bring up one of the other things that really got me about this episode that I had trouble with, and that's some of the side characters moving around. I really lost the thread on a couple of them, like the Mortal guy, right? The bartender, Mortal. Why did he die? I completely missed that, and I completely missed how Borlick gets from one wall to the other wall. It's like one moment she's stuck to this wall, and then the next moment she's in this wall, and it's like she just like go around magnetizing, bouncing into things. I didn't quite get it. So those were the two pieces that I was like, I felt like I missed something.
Yeah, I think the bartender got injured in the initial crash or whatever somehow. I'm not sure how. If something he had some kind of wound or something. I don't know how he got it. Maybe a piece of the station hit him. I don't know. I can't remember that. It's been a couple
See, I guess I just completely missed that because he's standing there, he's talking to him, everything's whatever, and then obviously it's like, oh, by the way,
yeah. Of course, at the wrong, worst possible moment, right? So the code is.
Yeah. First, I was like, "That's a weird code."
Yeah.
But but anyway, those were just two of the spots where I was like, "I don't quite." And then like, I was going back. I was like, "She was on this wall." The crew goes and does a bunch of stuff, and all of a sudden she's on this wall. It's like, man, okay, lady, stick around.
I guess like she's magnetic or something, or I don't have no that or. Yeah, that was weird, or that's the way, I guess, I don't know if that's like her species or a device along with the signal. I don't know. Yeah, that was not explained. It was funny. It just wasn't explained well, which I guess, whatever, I think it does have to be explained.
No, it doesn't. It just, again, with all the other stuff going on, it was like, they're just like, how do we get her off the plane? Oh, yeah, she just bounces over here, and then we toss her into space. It's like, well, okay, sure.
Let's just get a bigger piece of metal that she's attracted to and have her get sucked onto that. Okay, whatever. I don't know. And I guess Zan's still sick, which they mentioned like in a sentence or two, and that's about it. Other than that, it's getting worse. Which again, which is fine. I mean, not every plot line has to get fully explored every week, as we know from past experience with the show. So
yeah, they moved it forward a little bit, right? I mean, she's persisting in her progression towards death, and she got a little worse, so we can move.
Yeah, at least she got some time to get drunk in a tavern or whatever. Who knows? But that's fine.
Yeah, when you're on your countdown, you got to prioritize what you're doing.
Assuming plants can get drunk, we don't know. And then Jothee leaves. Yay, goodbye, see ya. And I guess we do kind of eventually get around to why Chiana did what she did. She just didn't like where Dargo was going with the relationship. But for some reason, rather than talk to him about it, she just decides to go and sleep with the sun. Okay. Yeah, she's impulsive and everything, but okay, sure. I still am disappointed and frustrated.
I'll summarize by saying my notes for this section just say "eck" because I don't get the point. I think it could have been done better if the goal was just to say, "Hey, we need an excuse to get Jothee off the show, and we need an excuse to break up Chiana and Dargo, and this is all they could come up with. That's the frustrating and disappointing to me part. It's like if the desire was to go from A to B, and we just want to get to B, there had to have been a better way than going through Z. But you know,
Yeah, because you play up on and off through 2 seasons of like, Dargo's lost his son's out there somewhere, he finally gets him back, and then you do that. Like, okay, uh, yeah, I guess we'll see what happens.
or we won't, and he'll just go off, and
Yeah, or we'll never
we'll
never hear about him again.
never hear about it again because the actor's popular and gets to go do other stuff, and
Yeah.
power to him.
So unless that doesn't work out and he comes back in a couple of seasons, or well, who knows? We'll see. We'll find out. All right. Anything else about season 3, episode 2?
No, I think we beat it to death. I don't want to be too negative. Yeah.
All right. So I guess speaking of episodes here, let's wrap it up. So I guess first episode obviously is wonderful. Season cliffhanger wrapped up. Everything's great. Aaron's back, which we knew how. I mean, which we knew she would be, but not how. And then, of course, now sets up future plot lines with Zan being sick, dying, or not dying. Crichton's back, yay. Harvey's still there, hey, interesting, hey, yay. And then they have to ruin it by having Chiana and Jothee's little thing there.
Yeah, I guess like we've said, repeatedly, hopefully we can move past all that nonsense and get back on track. I think again to summarize the first episode, yeah, I enjoy cliffhanger resolutions and they did a good job.
And episode 2 here, good, not amazing, solid. Most of the station plot line was good. We get the kind of resolution of the Jothee, Chiana, Dargo love triangle, which basically is now there's no triangle, no circle, no other kind of shape. It's done. It's over. It's toast. That's it, at least for now.
It's a plane.
Yes. And Aeryn trying to get frisky with Crichton when the station's blowing up. Huh? Other than that, it's okay.
Yeah. Again, we beat it. I beat it up a lot there, but I think the episode had potential. It wasn't close to the first one, which I did really enjoy. I think overall, though, if I had to look at some of our previous episodes that we've watched, I think we're still on a good run, right? We're still higher than some of the lower spots. We may not be on a upper plateau, but we're still trending higher. So I think we're going on a good run as long as I look past my dislike of the triangle, as you put it.
Now, no shape. Now, just two things going opposite directions forever. All right, so that was that. Next time, we're only on episode 3 next time. We already got our first two-parter. So we got next time, episode 3, Self-Inflicted Wounds, Part 1, Coulda, Woulda, Shoulda, and episode 4, Self-Inflicted Wounds, Part 2, Wait for the Wheel. And long-time listeners will know we play a guessing game here of what do we think those titles mean. Not a clue. I guess the coulda, woulda, shoulda. That's kind of like what you say when you're kind of like, oh yeah, I wish I would have done this, or I could have done that. So it's like second guessing, or kind of maybe blowing off, like yeah, whatever. Whatever happened in the past is the past. So I don't know, maybe something about hopefully Zan's action in last episode to save Aeryn. More fallout from Dargo and Chiana's breakup, like coulda, woulda, should have not done that. Who knows?
That'd be nice.
Yeah. As for Wait for the Wheel, yeah, don't know what that wheel is. That the Wheel of Time, the Wheel of Fate, Wheel of Fortune. But like, again, if Zan's truly dying, then don't kind of not talk about this for a couple of episodes. Hopefully, they're going to deal with that sooner than later. So either wrap it up one way or the other. Like, is she really dying, or is it they're going to find a cure? Who knows?
Yeah, I hope you're right on that. I think we need a break from all the relationship cycle stuff that we've been doing, and as we've made abundantly clear. But I think that kind of goes for the other two, right? Like, I feel, given the fact that they've said repeatedly that she's dying, that they should show some urgency to save Zan. But I kind of feel like in the back of my head that this is going to end up being a Crichton Aeryn relationship episode again, even if it's, similar to the last multi-parter about the Crichton ends up getting married to somebody else or something. I mean, I feel like they're going to throw some monkey wrench in because they can't leave anything on a forward, easy path. But I would prefer to see a Zan-centric Save Zan episode.
Yeah, I guess as we learned last season, like, oh yeah, it's, Dargo, your son's alive, he's out there, and like 8 episodes later, they finally get to him. So, but hopefully that's she's dying. That's kind of more precedence than, hey, your son's there somewhere. We'll get to him eventually. It's like, yeah, she's dying. So how long can she be dying, right? So
Well, So here I'm gonna go. We'll forget by the time it comes, so it's fine. I'll go ahead and make a weird prediction, a long term prediction. If they don't make this two-parter about saving Zan, then she dies in the finale of the season.
Okay.
There you go. Because if they don't resolve it quickly, then it's going to be the whole drawn out season, and she's going to die at the cliffhanger finale.
Okay. There's a prediction. All right. I guess we'll find out next week or not. We'll see.
Or not. I'm just counting on everybody forgetting by the time we hit the end of the season. That's what I'm counting on. So
Yeah, because we have. I know sometimes we go back and explain, or say, hey, our last episode we guessed this, we were right or wrong, and sometimes we don't bother doing that. So, hey, we'll see. Who knows?
man, I don't remember what I had for breakfast. So
Yeah,
y'all
right.
have to.
And it was like last time. It could be 2 months from now before we get back to this. Who knows?
Man, I
So,
hope not.
yeah.
We gotta.
Hey,
We'll try not to do that.
they've locked in a long-term deal with the Shout Factory, so it'll be on there for until it's not.
Yeah,
So,
as long as Shout Factory stays in business, right?
this is also true. So, well, hey, they're selling ads on these things. How much am I can make? Anyway,
You can't go broke selling ads.
that's right. Says everything that failed. Anyway, yeah. It's a foolproof marketing plan. What? Okay, no.
Step 3: break in loads of cash.
Yeah, right.
Got it.
All right. So that is your homework. Find it where you can find it. Watch it where you can watch it. And we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.